This is the moment we have all been waiting for. 2025 looks like it's going to be the year that we finally got the NFA. And I know that that is something that we've been talking about forever. Repeal the NFA. Well, the NFA is not going to be repealed probably anytime soon, but it's about to probably not really matter to most gun owners very soon. What do I mean by that? Well, of course, the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act. And the Short Act is on the Senate reconciliation bill now. The big, beautiful bill, the biggest, most beautiful bill that we've ever had. We now have the Short Act on that bill. This is a big deal. This is huge. I am calling it the biggest thing for gun rights in my lifetime. I was talking to my cousin earlier today about it, and he said, even bigger than the assault weapons ban going away. And I think that yes, because the 94 assault weapons ban, it was only ever supposed to be a 10-year thing with a sunset clause. And to be quite honest, it was a long time ago. This is what's on my mind now, and this is huge. Now, of course, if we did have an assault weapons ban still in place, then yeah, SBRs and suppressors, we might not have as much of a need for them anyway, but we do. Assault weapons are totally legal and they're covered by the Second Amendment and protected. And so are suppressors. So our short-barreled rifles shall not be infringed. Well, here we go. So this is a very big deal. We are about to get suppressors and short-barreled rifles taken off of the NFA, which will only leave destructive devices and machine guns. And yes, of course, we should have the right to those as well. But let's focus on the positive here. So we've been talking about the Hearing Protection Act for a long time. The Hearing Protection Act takes suppressors off of the NFA. Well, the Hearing Protection Act was included in the House of Representatives version of the bill. That did pass the House. It went over to the Senate. We've done videos here about, hey, get a hold of your senators and make sure that we get the Short Act on the big, beautiful bill as well. The Short Act does the same thing, but for short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns, SBRs, SBSs. As you can see behind me, I love suppressors and I love SBRs. I have a bunch of two-stamp guns. And yes, a little bit of a bummer. This gets passed and I paid for all these tax stamps for nothing. But you know what? I got to have the things when I wanted them. It is what it is. The key here is for all of you that have not paid for tax stamps, and even those of you that have, that we won't have to pay for them in the future. And it's not just about the $200 tax stamp, although that is the reason that we're able to get these things in this reconciliation bill. This bill is a bill about dollars. That's what it's about, and only things that have to do with taxation and the budget are allowed in a reconciliation bill. The cool thing about a reconciliation bill is that it only needs a simple majority to pass, meaning like for the Senate, 51 votes instead of the usual 60 to beat the filibuster. And so, because we have a Republican majority in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, we have a very, very good possibility of getting this passed. And President Trump says that when it reaches his desk, he will sign it into law. This bill is going to pass. This bill is going to become law. Now, we do have to make sure that both the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act stay on the bill, because it is not over yet. This is going to go back to the House of Representatives because there was changes made to it. One of those changes being that the Short Act was added to the bill. And so the House of Representatives gets another vote on the bill, and then it goes back to the Senate for another vote, and then it goes to the president. And so, I mean, we have been very vocal so far. I think that part of this grassroots effort is a big reason why these things made it on the bill. Make sure that you continue to call your representatives and your senators and make sure that this stuff stays in the big, beautiful bill. This video is sponsored by Venice AI. Do you ever wonder what ChatGPT does with your conversations? We all know that our phones, Alexa, everything like that, listens to our conversations and then advertises to us based on what we say. Well, what else are these things doing with our personal information? They're selling it to third parties, including governments. In fact, the director of the NSA, the former director, is now sitting on the board of ChatGPT, which is why I'm using Venice AI. Venice AI is an AI software. It uses open source software that you don't have to download. It goes straight to your web browser, but the biggest thing is that it's private and permissionless. And so you don't have to worry about them selling your information to anybody else, which is kind of why it's a big deal to me. I like privacy, even though I show everything that I do on a YouTube channel. My daughter, she's 13. She uses AI for all kinds of things these days. She's been writing stories with it. She's been making music with it. It is incredible what you can do with AI. It's a very powerful tool, but keep your privacy while you use it with Venice AI. I like the Pro plan personally. It just gives you a lot more that you can do, and you can get a 20% off on your Pro plan if you sign up using my link. That is venice.ai/sawtooth-tactical. Use that code to get 20% off. The code is sawtooth-tactical. For 91 years, almost a century, we have had this unconstitutional regulation on short-barreled rifles and on suppressors, which is absolutely ridiculous. And we're not going to go into the entire history of it here because we've kind of done that in other videos in the past, but there is no good reason for it. Now, of course, the Democrats disagree. They think, of course, that people that want suppressors and short-barreled rifles are just criminals and assassins, and that no normal person wants these things. Well, you and I know that is absolutely not true. Guns are tools. Now, guns are also fun, and I enjoy going and shooting them. And the most fun guns to me are short, quiet guns. They're easy to use, and they're quiet. I mean, they're just not as harsh on you to shoot. That's why it's called the Hearing Protection Act, because that's literally all that suppressors are, is hearing protection. But these things are also tools. And the thing is that the ones that are the most regulated are the most effective tools. If I want a tool to defend my home, well, of all of the things that you see behind me, I would say this short 300 blackout with a suppressor. I can run it very quietly, and it's lightweight, it's short, it's low recoil, it has a very decent capacity, and good ballistics. It's a very, very effective tool if I needed to defend my home from criminals. Having something much longer and much quieter is not as good of a tool to protect yourself with. Now, yeah, if you are having to defend yourself at 500 yards, yeah, something longer is good, but you still want it suppressed, in my experience. But being able to move around your house with something nice and short, not having to remember to put ear protection on if someone's breaking in the middle of the night, because you're not going to have time to do that. You need a suppressor. You need something short. And the fact that, we have these workarounds for the NFA, pistols, pistol braces. Yes, those can work just fine. But really, it is stupid that the difference between one kind of piece of plastic versus an actual stock, a different piece of plastic, is $200 or $10,000 in fines and 10 years in prison. We need to get these regulations gone, and they're gonna be. This is something that, honestly, if you'd asked me even a couple years ago if I would see suppressors and SBRs taken off the NFA, I don't think that I would have realistically thought that we had a snowball's chance in hell. And a lot of people still seem to think that for some reason. I do get comments on my shorts about it, but I think we actually have a very good chance right now. Like I said, we've been very vocal. We've been very loud. They wouldn't have just added the Short Act for no reason. They wouldn't have put the Hearing Protection Act back in the bill in its original form for no reason. Remember when they kind of, cut the Hearing Protection Act in half and they were just going to make it a $0 tax stamp, but keep all of the other unconstitutional stuff in there, all the other NFA requirements? Well, because we were so loud, they didn't do that. And I really doubt that the GOP at the last minute is going to pull these things out from underneath us and piss off a whole country of Second Amendment supporters that are expecting this stuff to be in this bill. And whether you agree with the bill fiscally or not, me, one of my biggest things, I'm kind of a single issue voter. Gun rights, the Second Amendment is a big deal to me. And the fact that we can get suppressors and SBRs deregulated through a tax bill, I'm not a lawyer. This is not something that I expected even a year ago, but I think that it's pretty amazing. I do think we have a really, really good chance of getting this passed. And this isn't some BS like clickbait, like you've seen, I'm not going to name the channel, but there is a channel that every video is like, ATF stripped of power to regulate suppressors and SBRs. Immediately, you know what I mean? Like everyone is like that. And every time you watch it and you're disappointed because that's not really what's going on, I don't watch that channel anymore. And because it was never true. Well, this time it is true. Like this stuff is happening. And it's supposed to happen by the 4th of July. That would be a really amazing, really patriotic 4th of July if we got our rights back on Independence Day. I think that would be really cool. And that's what they're pushing for. They're hoping to get this done and on the president's desk before July 4th so he can sign this big, beautiful bill into law and we can get suppressors and SBRs off the NFA. No more tax stamp. No more fingerprints, no more mugshot, no more getting put on a government list that the ATF keeps, no more $200 tax on these things that shouldn't be. Now, like I said, I've paid for a lot of tax stamps. I'm okay with that. I understood what I was getting into at the time, and it was worth it to me at the time. I think that a lot of people are waiting right now for these things to pass before they buy their first suppressor or maybe even their 10th suppressor. I do think that maybe that's not the right way to look at it, only because I think that if suppressors specifically get taken off the NFA, well, I think that there is going to be a huge demand for them. The demand has already skyrocketed since approval times got so quick. Like I just got this suppressor. It was like a couple days for the approval. This one I think was 2 days or a day and a half or something. Been getting suppressors very quickly and I just certified another one yesterday. Even with all this going on, I'm still going to pay the tax stamp on it because I want to get them now while I know that I still can get them. Now, as far as the way economics work and supply and demand, eventually the supply will catch back up with demand and we'll be able to get suppressors probably from a lot more manufacturers because every company that can make guns will now be able to make suppressors. And remember that as well. Suppressors are not just going to be an over-the-counter item like an optic or a stock or a magazine. They're going to be treated like any other firearm at this point. So you're still going to have to fill out a 4473 and do a background check to get a suppressor. Same thing for a factory SBR, but instead of a weight and a tax stamp and all that other BS, you'll be able to just buy it like an AR pistol or an AR rifle or whatever. It's just going to be a firearm. But I think that's pretty cool. I like building ARs. And one of the worst things about building an AR, like a couple of my builds here, short-barreled rifle, 14.5-inch pinned and welded to not be a short-barreled rifle to get around one tax stamp there. But tax stamp. You know, I've got another one over in there. This one's an SBR. You know, you put all this money and time into a build, and then you got to send the government $200 just so you can put your stock on it. That is stupid. And, you know, pretty soon we won't have to do that. We'll see what happens to companies like SB Tactical. Hopefully they just change with the market and maybe start making stocks. You know what I mean? Because there's not going to be much of a reason for pistol braces anymore. But I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that I am correct here, that we are about to get these passed? Because I do think that that is actually going to happen. And yes, I am known to be an optimistic person, but all signs are pointing in the right direction for both the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act. They're both in the big, beautiful bill now. The big, beautiful bill is going to pass. We got to make sure that these things stay in it. Don't stop now. Keep calling your Congress people. Keep calling your representatives, your senators. Leave messages. Bug the hell out of them. Make sure that they know that this is very important to you, and that if they want to, you know, keep their job, in order to keep their constituents happy, they need to include the Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act in the big, beautiful bill as it is right now. They're still working on some changes for the Hearing Protection Act to make sure that states that rely on NFA regulation for suppressor ownership don't just outlaw suppressors. But it looks like that's going to be taken care of in time. Make sure that we keep it up so that both these things stay in the bill. We only have a couple of weeks until July 4th. Don't get lazy now. Let's get this across the finish line and get this thing passed. This will be the biggest gun rights win in my lifetime so far. This is huge, and I'm excited. But I want to know if you guys are excited too. Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.